everyone, it's Matthew here from the SDGC, here with another Finnterview for you all. I'm here with two members of the team making the upcoming indie game Infernax. I'm here with Mike and Hunter. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Howdy.
Pretty good.
So we'll start with Mike. Mike, what can you tell? Like, what is your position in the company? What is it that you bring to the table?
God damn it. Why do you have to start with the trick question?
Yeah.
I'm Mike, and I do Mike things. Basically, I'm overseeing whatever is not production at Berzerk Studio. Which is, I guess, the best way to just do it very concisely.
Yeah, our jobs are probably best described as we both do similar overlapping but somewhat distinct things. We just do the stuff that's not prod and coding, right? Basically everything else.
Mike handles the Canada section and you handle the American section.
He handles the everything section and then I'm backup. So
Hunter is basically Berzerk South.
Yeah, exactly.
I like, there's nothing wrong with that. So now I met Hunter a while ago, back when this was still a relatively unknown game coming out. I mean, you have to understand, the last time I saw this was in the pre-COVID world, just feels so long ago. So what can you tell people about what it is that is finally on the way? Because it comes out this month, and Infernax is launching in February, correct? The 14th, if I'm correct?
Yes.
Valentine's
Day of
Day.
Love.
Smart. If Deadpool can do it, Infernax can do it, okay? So what can you tell us about Infernax?
Well, Mike has all the older history of the game, but one of the things you're saying, it's finally coming out. It feels crazy to hear that because it's been in production for officially how many years now?
11 years.
Yeah, 11 years.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
In 2 months.
But who's counting?
Yeah. I am.
Yeah. But no, I mean, the game's actually come a long way since you saw it even. Since we had that demo at PAX West, if I think it's the one I'm thinking of, was basically the inaugural trot out for it. That PAX West where we did the full build out, where we had I'm going to use my hands, but if you're just listening, we built a surround to make our flat screen into a CRT, and rolled out carpet, and had an old grandma couch, and because basically the vibe of the game, right, is re-evoking those feelings of being 12 and it being Saturday and you not having anything to do in a brand new game for your NES, right? So it's come a long way since then, in just the almost about 2 years, right, that we've been working on it since COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, the grain grew about, I want to say twice in terms of size. And whatever we had back then, it grew twice. And in the past 10 years, it grew by, I want to say 1,000% almost. It used to be a 2-day project. Oh, not 2 day, 2 weeks project, and now it grew into a multi-year project with 12 people working on it. So
yeah, the history of Infernax that doesn't come up a lot, right? Because people keep because people have been asking us about tell us about the game, and a lot of questions too come up about with the modern retro pixel scene, how'd you feel about making it stand out? And we've had to tell people, well, so technically it's 11 years old. So when they started working on it, not only were they not worried about that because none of those games existed, but also they were making it in Flash. So it was a little different. It was a weekend Flash game. So It's come a really long way from that.
That's amazing. And for those that aren't familiar with it, first off, get familiar with it, go check it out. But it's kind of it's one part Castlevania, one part almost Zelda 2. It's very reminiscent of that era and genre of classic NES games. In the interim, since we last saw it, have there been any more inspirations infused into Infernax, or how did you go from being more of an homage project to creating your own identity?
The Fate system, right?
Yeah. A lot of it is just try to create a way that was not just a single playthrough. You play the entire game, which was the game at first. You'd play it from A to B and you'd be done. But we decided to add another layer on top that would it's the Fate system, that you make decisions throughout the game and they change not just how the story goes, but how do you interact with the world and how you interact with the game. You have new power-ups, or there's people dying and there's different endings and stuff.
Yeah, that's a continuation. In the demo that people may have played, because we had it on Steam at 1.2 for an event and things like that. But the show demo had a choice early on in the game, right, where you'd be confronted with the choice to. I mean, it's pretty well known, so it's not really a spoiler that like pretty early on you're given a choice where a man asks you to basically like mercy kill him because something is happening, and you don't have any context at that point whether you want to slay this guy or try and help him. And originally in the design of the game, like that had some changes that would affect, but they weren't like far-reaching. And so as we kept working on development, a thing that came out was wanting to make sure that every single one of those touch point like moments when you get to choose did something later, like there was like an actual difference to your playthrough as opposed to it just being a presented choice you can make and it in that moment happens. It's like every time that happens, something happens as a result of each time you make, like each one of them has an effect, right, on the rest of the playthrough.
So what you're saying is this is it's now Zelda 2 meets Mass Effect, the world's first Zelda 2 Mass Effect mashup.
I mean,
lot less banging though.
Yeah, a little. It's harder with the pixels,
until the DLC, right?
Well, I mean, people have to buy it first, and then we can talk about that. That'd be great if everyone goes and buys copies of it. I mean, we. Yeah, but it is. But you're right, though. It does often in those scenarios too. You get kind of like a similarly binary moral choice, right? And
yeah,
it's not always super obvious which one's the right one too. Like there are choices that you make over the path of the game that it should be pretty obvious sort of where you're going, right? Hopefully when you get down a certain path, you don't feel like you accidentally ended up there. We've definitely tried to make sure it's written a way where that doesn't happen. But like there are some times where it's like it's a difficult choice to make because it's not necessarily that like one is objectively right. Mm-hmm. It's more of a question of like in this scenario, which one do you want to go with? And like we said, once you've made that choice, the rest of your playthrough is like influenced by it.
And also like whatever choice you make doesn't always reflect the result of it. Like the first choice you make in the demo, you think you're helping the guy, but actually it goes bad. But if you're not helping him, well, you basically just kill him and you just get that gross key art.
Yeah. It's fun. That's been one of the coolest things that's changed over this like final, I guess. I think about Infernax's development as like there's the phase where it got developed over time. Then we picked it up again, right, as a studio, because I've only been at Berzerk a little over 3 years now. Mike, you're coming up on 10?
Yeah, about 10, yeah.
Yeah. So like the three phases kind of feel like the early days, right, which is a long early day. There's like the middle when we picked it back up and kind of got to show it at PAX. And then there's been this last phase, post PAX East, like 2020, where we've really refined it and it's become like this really, it's really awesome. It's been really cool to watch that final phase, like everything like lock together and go from like, oh, this is a game based on game. Like I was super excited when I joined the team and heard we had Infernax because I owned Zelda 2 before Zelda. Like I didn't own a copy of Zelda for a really long time. And so Zelda 2 is my favorite NES Zelda game. And so like, I think that the idea that it's largely inspired by Zelda 2 and Castlevania 2 is like part of what made me love it in the first place. So
that's how you first sold like me on the concept. You're like, people love to hate on those two games, but like, what if we made them amazing? Like as amazing as they were to us as kids growing up.
Right. And take out the like friction stuff, right? Because like part of what people didn't like from them, part of it was like because of design limitations at the time, and part of it was like it was still that phase in Nintendo where sequels were weird because they hadn't really figured out how to like iterate yet. And so like Zelda 1 is like a top-down, game. Zelda 2 is like really out there. And then Link to the Past is like, oh, dial it back. Hold on. Go back to the first. And so like Zelda 2 had all these cool ideas. Went away for a long time and like nobody talked about. And part of that's just because like it's a pretty difficult game, right? It's hard.
It's quite known for it. So Infernax, have you tackled the difficulty? Like, were you trying to lean more into the hardcore difficulty aspect of that? That's quite common in that genre, or were you trying to make it more accessible so that more people can experience the game? Like the classic Dark Souls argument.
At first, the goal was to make a very hard game, but also we come to realize at some point that that's not how everybody plays anymore. You're not just catering to a single kind of gamer now. You're catering to the internet basically. So we did have to like try to get that in our heads and just figure it out the way to make it. I don't want to say easier, but more enjoyable for more people.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
the hard part, or I guess not the
Yeah.
hard part, but like again, the friction, right? Like there's
Yeah.
a mode you can play that is as hard as we intended it to be, right? Because there's a is it still hardcore mode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a hardcore mode which like when you die, unless you have saved recently, like you just revert back to your state at that save, so all progress is lost.
Oh wow.
And then there's a more casual mode where when you die, you go back to a safe point, but your progress as far as like gaining experience and gold and stuff, that progress isn't lost. So like even if you're failing, you're kind of failing forward, right? So like over time you gain experience and stuff. So say you keep butting your head against something, you do end up gaining enough experience to like say level your, power up, which will make it easier to beat that section. Like, and of course we put in like a handful what we could accessibility wise to try and address that. Like there are certain parts of the game like platform wise that can be like difficult if you need like reaction time. We've added some concessions to like make things like platforming sections like easier if you needed it, right? Like for the people who want to play the game, and that would be like a blocker for them to like not even be able to try it.
I love hearing about that because, I mean, you've seen accessibility be a big push for AAA games, but it's still relatively untouched in the indie space. Like, I think Celeste is one of the big examples, but it's
such a good example, though.
It's really cool that you guys are even taking those steps because that's no one's making you, and you chose to do that on your own. So I'm gonna give Mike full credit for that decision.
Sure, do it.
I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can get.
I'm bad at games in a lot of ways, so
Yeah.
I always push for that sort of stuff too, though, right? Because like I like hard games. There are hard games I can beat, but I don't really like the idea, like the whole. I played a bunch of Bloodborne during the pandemic, and so I think I kind of understand that argument about how Souls-like games are the way they are because that's like sort of what makes them what they are. But I like when it doesn't need that, when it's not a FromSoft game, right? When it's not already done in that, like, we didn't have to make it like that. The game could still be fun the way we made it with, like, concessions, like the casual mode, for instance, right? What if you just want to play it and you don't, like, you got a job and, like, a kid or something, and you, right?
Yeah.
What if you're the actual...
hours dedicated to build the muscle
Right.
memory, pattern recognition?
We just asked ourselves, what's the average age of the person who really likes Zelda 2? Do you think that...
Oh, they're in their 40s?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Do you not think they don't have carpal tunnel at this point?
Right.
They don't have like people to take care of. They have like 45 minutes a day to play. They don't have time to just mess around in the dungeon for 6 hours straight.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, as a new dad of a now 10-month-old, like that's important to me now. I don't have the time for my long gaming marathons.
Right.
You gotta break it up.
It's a pretty good, if you were trying to play it like sectionally too as a game, it would actually work pretty well for that because like the distance, as long as you're not struggling super hard, the distance between save points isn't really all that crazy, right? Like other than like a castle level or something.
But
where
even now, like with casual mode, we added checkpoints inside castles because we figured that one of the big difficulty of the castle was just like trying to learn the entire thing with 2 lives.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would die, and then you have to start over again. And those castles can get hard because you're just doing the same thing over and over again, doing like 40 screens over again. So with that checkpoint in the middle, it does the learning stage in 2. So like you can just get there, and after that you start over from just that point, which makes it a lot. I don't want to say it makes it easier, but it makes it easier to learn, basically.
It feels good. That was like a constant back and forth, right? Internally too, is that like the creative direction from the top is we wanted to, like Etienne, the creative director, really wanted to keep the challenge in the game as much as possible with like minimal concessions to making it easier. But like we all agreed to try and make it, I guess, more accessible is like a really general way to describe it.
Yeah.
But, like make it so that you can play it at like less than the get good level it would be if we didn't put a casual mode in. But still, like if you beat it, you beat the game. It doesn't really get easier unless you need to use the accessibility options, right? Like you did the button pressing to do it. So like it's a similar experience. It's just presented in a way that's like maybe more palatable if you're having a tough time.
Okay. Now, what can you guys tell me about Berzerk as a company? Because I mean, this Infernax isn't the first game, is it?
No.
Yeah, exactly. So give us some of your history. Break down Berserk for us. What do we know you for?
Well, Berzerk, we started in 2008. We were mostly known as a Flash game studio. We between 2008 and 2013, we published about 22 Flash games. Those were like back in the day when you would just play new games on Newgrounds, Congregate, Armor Games, and we were known for being like those high octane, high production value games for Flash back then, because back then Flash were just two-man studios making games in a weekend. We were one of the first like actual studios to do it, and we were the first indie developers in Quebec as well as to do it. And we did that for 6 years. Yeah, 6 years. Then we took a little break because Flash crashed. So like the three founders, they ended up just the entire studio pretty much just dissolved except for the three founders, and we started it back up a year and a half after. With Chips and Beats and Zombidle. Chips and Beats was our first console game, and Zombidle was our biggest mobile game that we did. It was an idle game, run for 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it actually ran a little longer than that. I mean, actively updated, because technically there's a Steam version still live. People still play it and stuff, but it got like really, really often active content updates for a couple years there.
And I mean, anyone that went to a PAX is very familiar with Just Shapes and Beats in your booth.
Whether they don't know it or they do, they heard Mortal Kombat at least.
I'm the one who apologizes, so I'm going to say sorry on behalf of Berzerk Studio. Mike won't do it, but I'll say sorry.
Well, it's crazy because
I'll bribe them instead.
When you realize that the team, like when you look at Infernax and realize, oh, y'all are the Just Shapes and Beats guys, like it's a really cool tonal shift to show that you're not just gonna be pigeonholed into making like more rhythm action games, you know. So how did that even go about? How did you just go from one extreme to the other, basically?
It's actually the other way around, because we were known for making like war games, like Viking games, people with big muscle guns and gasoline
muscle
games.
Explosion.
Muscle explosion.
Okay.
Yeah, for a Flash game. Yeah, like the logo is just a big Viking guy screaming.
Yeah.
So like the 20 games that we made before, except for like maybe Rocket Santa, and even Rocket Santa was like goddamn Santa with a jetpack.
Yeah.
Yeah, like every single game that we did was just like over the top. I don't want to say violence, but just like slapstick humor with, I mean, like action and stuff. So Shapes and Beats was the outliner.
Like a lot of those games too carry like a lot of like arcade and retro like DNA in the design. So like Infernax's design is definitely sort of like a, you know, like Just Shapes and Beats is here, where it's like here's the timeline, and then it goes like that. And then
so what
like
you're saying is Just Shapes and Beats is the Zelda 2, and Infernax is the link to the past, going back to the roots.
It would be great if Zelda 2 got as much love as Just Shapes and Beats has gotten. It deserves it. JSB has gotten like lots of. I mean, it's been such a cool. That community is so strong. Like they're so strong. We love them, and it's crazy because they just love it so much. Like being involved in a project where people are so passionate about it is crazy to watch still, like years later, right? I mean, the game's been out for years.
It's been quite some time.
And most indie games are lucky if they can get like a dedicated fan base and do some decent sales in about a year and like, you know, stick around. Like we still have like a really active Discord. People tweet at us nonstop. Like people, like, you know, it's still to this day like a pretty active game.
Yeah.
But it is also, it helps showcase maybe not a priority, but a preference for music in your games, because Infernax has also got a lot of like music DNA in it. What can you tell us about that?
I mean, it's not coincidental that this was the first shirt we designed, right? Like, I mean,
giant super metal, Infernax,
yeah.
It's not I mean, the music of the game is pretty appropriate for like the era it's paying homage to in the like the actual music in the game itself, right? But like you're in the DNA of like the tone of it, right? Like metal is like in there. We all like, not every single person in the studio loves metal, but Etienne, the creative director, does. Like I absolutely am a huge metalhead. Like we all bring our own, but for him at least, I know because we talked when I started working on the writing for the game. I asked him all the questions you want to know, right? Where I was like, what music do you like, Etienne? What made you this way? And he was he told me that like the bands like Merciful Fate, which is like it's a sort of a deep cut, but like King Diamond, stuff like that, are like metal bands that he likes like to reference as far as like tone and stuff. And like for me, I'm a big fan of like doom metal, so like I listen to a lot of bands like Sleep and like Bellwitch and things like that are like really doomy and atmospheric. Like that's what I'd listen to while writing on the game. So like metal is like, I mean, also you got stuff like Manowar, right? Which is just literally like big oiled up muscly dudes atop like a pile of bodies with a sword aloft. Like, so it's hard not to like, I don't know if Etienne likes that, but I definitely like, I see it in the like, you know, sort of Conan-esque sort of that era, right? Like,
what about you, Mike? Did your music taste ever blend in?
And for Infernax, to be honest, like every single paperwork I do it listening to Cannibal Corpse, so it goes right down my alley. But it's also doing paperwork, therefore it makes sense. But every single game we'd made before Ships and Bees was also very metal oriented. We always had metal soundtracks to it, but we just went off a bender with Infernax. We tried to make it something that was, instead of just picking up like free music online, we just decided to get someone to do it for us. And they were like awesome as well. Like we got 3 different composers on it. We have Olivier Couillard, that was a local guy that did the first version. Then we had Family Jewels that worked on it as well, and Triptych Audio, Jason, that worked with.
yeah.
Did I just misname him?
No.
Oh, Jason. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Jason. Yeah, Jason that worked on it as well from Triptych. So.
Yeah, the music's pretty great now too, because I'm pretty sure that the demo you played had like one of the older placeholder tracks, and since then the like newer track, it's similar, like, you know, it's got overworld themes, it's got like different daytime the music rules so much. It's so good.
Now if you had to kind of elevator pitch, like if I have never played your game before or heard of it, why would I buy Infernax? Sell me on Infernax.
I'm gonna make Mike do it. Go ahead. I believe
we need to eat.
Believe in me.
Yeah, we need to eat.
We need to eat. Buy our games. Come on.
But why Infernax? Is it because death is certain?
I remember.
That is certain, but yeah, like if what you're into is like retro games and you want to feel like you're 8 again, just drinking juice in a bag inside your goddamn couch fort, Infernax is for you, because it's going to be driving you right back to it. You're going to be feeling like a Saturday morning eating cereal, playing video games, and trying to find every single secret inside your cartridge that you had for 6 months now. This is the goal. Like you know, remember when you had one cartridge until your birthday, and then you had one at Christmas? This is the game for you. It's a game that you're going to be spending so much time just trying to find something new in there, and finding new ways to play it as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that rewards repeat play or smart play, or, you know, there's, I mean, we put the, you know, the game has a built-in cheat code system. So like when you put cheat codes into the game, like, you know, they're awarded for various things in the game too, which like are one of the ways, but there are codes that pretty sure there's no in-game way to award them. So we'll see how those ever get out. But there's a lot of stuff in the game that like unlocks through those that like changes the way it plays, or I mean, honestly, some of them are just for fun, right? But a lot of them are, it's that same thing, right? Where like their inclusion is just more of like a love letter to that idea of games like having more. Mm-hmm. Like even if it doesn't make sense, or even if it doesn't totally work perfectly, but it doesn't, right? Like it's just amusing. Like the idea that like remember Big Head mode, right? Like just that, like, yeah, just having that. It didn't need it. It didn't make it better in any way. But like, having it was so good.
Like back when you had a Game Genie and you didn't know if the code would actually work or if it would just completely mess something up.
It would just brick your save.
Right. We don't have a brick your save code as far as I know. But we should have. Goodness. I'm really actually sad about that. I wish we'd added one.
It's a code that just bricks your save.
Yeah.
It does nothing.
All it does is ruin your day. So
it erases your save games.
Now I'm going to get a little personal now. I'm going to get a little deep. Okay. Hunter knows where this might be going. Right. The time to talk about your game is over. That's old hat. Okay. We're done. Now I want to know about Mike. All right. And also Hunter. So the first question is the most important. Gun to your head, if you had to choose cake or pie.
I mean, pie. So I can get any sort of pie I can get. Get like apple pie.
You could
get pumpkin pie.
That's also
meat
true.
pie.
Yep.
Meat pie. Like I can get every single like thing I need in my body in pies, not in cakes.
That's right, and that's why pie is the correct answer. Anyone that says cake is a fool.
Is an aspic a cake?
Is a what?
An aspic.
Aspic. All right.
I don't know.
It's
what
like
that is.
like a Jello mold where it uses gelatin to hold things inside of like a shape.
And you can have like meat and
Jello. I mean, I'm just saying.
Is a Jello a cake?
It's in the name. Pizza pie. Okay.
Oh, if pizza is included in pie, then there's only one right answer.
Yeah.
Clearly.
I get a lot of pushback on that, but I'm like, hey, it's not my fault. It's in the name. Okay.
I feel like Chicago is still very strong.
Yeah. Deep dish pizza is definitely a pie.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
now, Hunter,
pie.
It's been years since I've gotten your answer. I don't even remember what it is.
Me either. I have joined, if I was not Team Pie before, I've joined Team Pie. Now with this revelation of the fact that I can justify pizza in there, boy, howdy am I going pie. I don't even need, because I don't have a sweet tooth really, right? So, like, pie was probably the right answer anyway, because, like, meat pies, like chicken pot pie.
Yeah.
I would...
Shepherd's
maybe,
pie.
Maybe it's heresy, but I would rather have a really good chicken pot pie than literally any cake. Like any cake that exists, if I had to delete it from existence to just keep chicken pot pie, that'd be fine with me.
I mean, that's two really strong votes in the Infernax corner right now. I mean,
right.
I'm not saying that if you said cake, I would delete this video, but I'm not saying that.
I couldn't blame you.
So, follow-up question, completely unrelated, but still equally as important. Mike, what is something non-video game related that you wish more people knew about? What is something else that you enjoy in your life that if you would now have a podium to shout its allure to the world? What is it you wish some more people enjoyed?
Okay. Like, if there's one thing that the pandemic taught me is that cooking is like super important because you cannot just live off goddamn Uber Eats and shit. And having variety in your life is actually very important. So learn how to cook. It's also very sexy.
That's a good answer.
Heard that. I cook all our meals. I'm basically a stay-at-home dad at this point.
Yeah, I'm the cook. I'm the cook in this house too, for sure.
What about you, Hunter? What's something you want more people to know and enjoy? Could be a TV show, a movie, a book.
I mean, you know what? You've known me long enough that I'm legally obligated to have one answer, and that's Highlander.
Yes,
right?
I was hoping for it.
Let me just regale you for a moment. If you haven't seen Highlander, which what are you fucking doing here? Highlander is a film from the 80s, wonderful film. Stars Mr. Christopher Lambert. It was directed, the first movie ever directed by the guy who directed it, who'd never directed a movie and had only directed music videos. And the script was written by somebody who was still in film school. They like bought it from him. He was like, they were like, "Stop digging, kid, you struck gold." They just optioned that movie, gave it to a guy who makes music videos. And we're like, we're going to hire Christopher Lambert because his agent said he can speak English perfectly, which was not true. So he showed up on set and had to learn the script mostly phonetically. So he's got this really wild accent the whole time, and it's because like he doesn't really speak English while he's playing this role, which works great because he's playing an immortal swordsman from who knows where. I mean, he's from Scotland, but anyway, it's awesome. I've watched it an unhealthy amount of times. Can I tell you a real quick story about why Highlander? So,
why Highlander?
My first job, my first official job, I guess, was running a game store because I went to independent study instead of the last couple years of high school. So I had a full-time job running a game store because I'm a giant nerd and have been forever. And the guy who ran it, the owner was like, "Hey, you know what? Just for background noise, there was like a CRT television on one of those arms in the corner, right? The ubiquitous like giant TV." And he's like, "Just have a VHS in, like, just here's a box, like, just always have something going in the background." There were only like 4 tapes. There's only 4 tapes in there. It was like one was a 2-episode tape of X-Files, 2-episode tape of Pokemon, The Crow, and Highlander. And, I rotated them for a while. And then my job was, I was the weekday guy whose job was to basically be there because I opened the store at noon, received deliveries, and people came and got their comic books during the week, right? On like lunch breaks. It was just me in there a lot during the week. And I was like, I wonder if I put Highlander in and just every time it ends, put it back in, how long it'll take until someone mentions it. And the answer was about 300 playthroughs is how long. So just like every day for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, for however long it took, just kept putting Highlander in over and over. And it was sort of a bit at first, but sort of like Stockholm Syndrome. Like you come around, right? You start to like actually enjoy it. And now it's like a pivotal part of my entire life where like as a person, I wouldn't exist without Highlander existing anymore.
From such humble beginnings.
It's not a good movie objectively, but it's a great movie,
Hey, we've all been there, okay?
What about the TV show?
The TV show is wonderful too. I've seen all of the movies. I've seen the TV show and many times. I used to play I own the web domain for the now defunct trading card game. Look, I live this lifestyle every day. I wake up, put on my Highlander.
He's not a fake Highlander fan. There could only be one, and it was Hunter.
It's me. But yeah, go watch Highlander. It's great. It's a great movie. If you don't agree, you're wrong, right? So that's it. That's all I got for it. Queen made the soundtrack. The soundtrack is a custom soundtrack made by Queen. How many movies have a soundtrack made by Queen? God, I could just keep going. Sorry.
The biopic about Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, I mean, but that just has Queen's songs, right? They wrote new songs.
It's a soundtrack of Queen.
But it's a custom soundtrack. They wrote a song called Who Wants to Live Forever about the movie with immortal people in it. It's so good.
I was like, Mike, how many times have you heard about Highlander in your tenure there?
It's why I drink.
It's a lot.
You drink. I love it.
I remember as a joke one time at a PAX, someone was like, I bet you could just put on an impromptu panel about Highlander, right? I'm like, yeah, sure. And we were at like a bar after the show floor had closed. And someone jokingly tweeted that I was going to do it. And a couple people showed up. And so I had to actually talk about it for like 20 minutes.
Oh, what a horrible life. So,
oh, no, I love it.
So swinging back to Infernax to wrap up, tell people, like, again, when it's coming out, what platforms it's going to be on. I mean, have we set a price? Like, hit us with the details so people can get the more concrete info.
Them business deets. Mike, you want to handle it?
Sure, yeah, we're coming out on February 14th, 2022. If you're listening to this in the future, you're way past due.
Yeah.
We're coming out on every single platform, so Xbox One, Xbox Series X, PS4, therefore PS5. We're coming out on Switch, PC for Steam. It's going to be $19.99 USD, whatever that transfer to your local currency. And yeah, it's coming out on
we're also
14 days from now.
Congratulations on being picked up by Game Pass.
I was about to say, yep, we're going to be on, depending on how far into the future it is, right? But we're on Game Pass at launch, day one, which will be cool. So that also, I believe, extends to Game Pass for PC. So
here's my question about that, because I'm always curious, because everyone has a different answer. Did they approach you, or did you approach them about getting it on Game Pass?
It's a bit of both. We had been talking about like different projects in the past, and they just came at us for Infernax because we were supposed to be coming out so many years ago, and they just reminded us that they exist, and they just like, hey, you want to be on Game Pass? And we're like, yeah, sounds good.
This is also the first. Is this the very, very first project we've ever worked with a publisher on, right?
For consoles, yeah.
For consoles.
We like back in Flash, we were doing sponsors, which were basically
of course
publisher-ish. This is our first publisher on console, which is the Arcade Crew.
Yeah,
the same guys that did Blazing Chrome. They've been doing stuff with Dotemu as well.
Nice. Yeah,
I was really stoked when we got to work with them because I love Blazing Chrome's like a really good an example of another like homage game designed to the love letter game. Where they tried to take out the parts that were like objectively not helping the design of an otherwise good game, right? And so when I heard we got to work with Arcade Crew, I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Like that's perfect.
Yeah, and they're so chill about it too. They're actually gamers. that's what they want to do. They want to do retro games. So that's such a good fit for us. That's how we ended up
with them. Is that same PAX when you played it? Like Dotemu, who's their parent company, kept bringing people over to play the demo, and
That's awesome.
It was, yeah.
Now,
Yeah, every single time they invite us to bars, it's like retro game bars and stuff like that. Like, let's go to the arcade. Like, I just want to get a drink, but I don't want to play games tonight. Please stop.
oh, it's your life now. Sorry, Mike. So tell us about like where can people find you all on the Twitters and the whatnot?
Oh, yeah.
Like how can after listening
do
to this
that.
amazing interview and falling in love with both of you, how can someone follow you on social media?
Well, first, I would be remiss if I didn't say you should go follow Infernax, which you can follow on Twitter at Infernax, INFERNAX, Infernax. Berzerk Studio, also, we're on Twitter. We're pretty funny because it's at least half me, but it's Berzerk Studio, BERZERK STUDIO. And I personally am Bond Hunter Bond, spelled like it sounds.
And I'm Mike Ducarme Suck without the S at the end because there's a char limit on Twitter. Because I'm a very serious man that takes myself seriously.
Well, I want to thank you both for taking the time out of because I mean it's never a quiet time in the days leading up to a launch. So I know your time is valuable, and I appreciate you taking the time to be on the Finnterview for the SDGC podcast because you guys are awesome and your game is awesome. So it just personally means a lot. So I appreciate it.
Well, you're awesome.
Yeah, it was nice to get to see you again. It's been too long, right?
It has.
Hopefully it won't be that long again. Like let's fingers crossed, maybe.
Fingers crossed.
Touch wood.
But
Touching wood.
I just wanted to wrap it up and thank you all for being dope. Dope AF, as the kids would say.
Thank you for having us.
All right, you guys have a wonderful night, and to everyone else, go buy and play Infernax.
All right.
Shillin'. You'll love to see it.
See you later.